This podcast is sponsored by ebookit.com, self-publishing solutions for the independent author and small press. Visit us today at ebookit.com. Hello and welcome to the Toastmasters podcast, the official podcast of Toastmasters International. Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Toastmasters podcast. My name is Bo Bennett. And today I am going to be speaking with Ms. Jennifer Cunningham. She's a member of the Big Red Toastmasters at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. She's Cornell University's Senior Director of Metrics and Marketing in the Office of Alumni Affairs, which produces or supports 1,400 events per year around the world. Please help me welcome Jennifer Cunningham. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good to have you here. Thanks for being with me today. We are going to be talking about going back to college, but this time as the teacher. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that as students on a campus, there's so many people that you can learn from. Your professors, your fellow students, those are all kind of things that you expect. One of the communities that students and even the faculty sometimes forget about are the alumni who have graduated already and are out in the real world learning and moving up in their professions, and having those people come back to campus or coming to speak to other alumni at events around the world. It's a fabulous source of information for the students or for the alumni out there who are just naturally proud of each other. You all went to the same college, you had a 4-year or in sometimes maybe 6 or 7 year experience at the place, and you bond over that shared experience. No matter what your class year, no matter what you're doing in life, you have that bond. And to have fellow alumni speak to you is a really rich experience.
Yeah, I could see that. And now I'm completely blown away here by you guys doing 1,400 events per year.
Yeah, and that number I just finished compiling for our fiscal year that ended in July, and we're up to now 2,000 events.
Oh my goodness,
so,
too many.
Right, and that's Cornell. We've got about 250,000 alumni around the world, which makes us large. But there are larger institutions, but pretty much every university that I am in contact with among my peers does events for their alumni around the world.
Yeah, that was my question, but I think you answered it. Like, where do you guys fit in terms of other schools in terms of size? So you're large, but you're not the largest. Is that right?
Right. And the flavor of the school has a lot to do with what types of events they can offer and what their volunteer management program is. We've got a network of Cornell volunteer leaders of about 6,000 strong who will help put these events on, and in many cases drive these events with very little help from the staff. So a lot of them are volunteer driven, some are staff driven, and that model depends on which school you went to. But you could be working, if you become a speaker for your fellow alums or for students, you could be working with an unpaid volunteer, or you could be working with a paid staff member.
Sure. Okay, so the gist of this basically is that as public speakers, we want some experience. We would like to get our names out there. If we're promoting a book or something, of course, that would be great to sneak in there when we're giving a talk or giving a speech. So this is an opportunity for Toastmasters or public speakers to speak in front of what could be potentially a very large and definitely a very receptive audience. So let's take it kind of from step one. If I am, as a public speaker, also as a college graduate, if I wanted to do this, what would be my first step?
So the first thing you need to do, I would just start where most of us start today, is go online and look at the types of events that your alma mater offers. Many of them do use alumni to speak and to gather other like-minded alumni. And in addition to the speaker, people are attracted to these events to network with each other. So a lot of them follow a similar format where you come, you have some wine and cheese, and then you hear a speaker, and then maybe there's another wine and cheese or dessert hour following. So we get about 50% of the people who come to these events say they came to hear the speaker, and the other 50% came primarily for the networking, but also to hear from the speaker. So go online, just see what kinds of events your alma mater offers. And then if you can, go to one of the events so that you can get a sense of whether this is for you, the kind of level of person speaking. Are they only featuring CEOs of Fortune 500 companies? Are they featuring startups? Are they featuring, what types of people and what types of topics do they generally cover?
Okay.
And that's really the first step. And then you would want to contact the alumni relations professional to find out even more about it. How does one become a speaker? Different schools have different criteria for who speaks in this format. Sometimes if you aren't a speaker at a regular in-person event, you could be a webinar speaker, or they could put you to work somewhere else.
Okay. Now, these events are all over the country and possibly in different parts of the world, depending on the size of the school,
yeah.
right? Okay. So if my school was across the country and I'm not even anywhere near it anymore, then it's not a big deal because I could still find an event in my area that I would likely to participate. Okay,
exactly. And especially in the further flung parts of the world, if we have, an alumni event in Montana and there's only 50 alumni in that area, your chances of being a speaker are even better than if you're smack dab in the middle of New York City and there's 40,000 alumni right there. So,
sure.
Don't let that, I'm 3,000 miles away from school. That's absolutely not a barrier, assuming that your school has an active alumni base where you live.
Gotcha. And also, I guess depending on how I don't want to use the word desperate, but how motivated you are to speak, you could expand your geographical circle and be willing to do these events in different locations, which will increase your chance. Correct?
Right, and we've done that when we've had particularly dynamic alumni speakers. Sometimes they start out in one area, and we say, "Oh my gosh, if you're ever traveling to this other city, let us know. We'd love to feature you at this event." I once took somebody to 3 different cities, and he sold out in every venue. So, if you travel for business or pleasure, that's another way to connect.
And you mentioned that these organizations, the alumni organizations, sometimes they're the students. There's like a student body that chooses the speaker, and sometimes it's a staff. And so I didn't quite get if you actually did that or if you had students that choose the speaker, or is it a little bit of both?
So it's a little bit of both. And when we have volunteer alumni leaders across the country, and sometimes they will choose speakers.
Okay.
As far as speaking to students, it's usually like a faculty member that's teaching a class that will reach out to an alum and have them come back to campus and speak or do a webinar. And for staff, it's really all over the map how we choose our speakers and whether we go through volunteers to do the ask of the speaking or how that works. So.
Gotcha. And these events, a Toastmaster should not be incredibly nervous for something like this because these are very much like Toastmasters meeting in terms of receptiveness, correct? Right.
And like my supervisor, Jim Mazza, says in the article, and he's exactly right, that you had a shared experience with the people in the audience. They are rooting for you. They are proud of you that you have achieved so much in your career that now you are coming back as a alumni rock star to teach them something. And so they're really just the fact that you both went to the same school and you have that common bond makes the audience a very warm one. And they're there to learn from you. They're there because the marketing went out and said that you were speaking and that you were helping to bring together all these people. So it's a really nice audience to start with. And, it's similar, I guess, to another, to like a Rotary meeting or something where you have something in common. But there's something about the bond of going to school together that just adds a whole other layer of appreciation for you. So it's a great place to start, maybe to get outside the Toastmasters group once you feel comfortable and to go into a friendly face.
Sure. Now, I could imagine a lot of the Toastmasters, the listeners out there might be thinking, well, this sounds great, but I'm no super rock star in my field. I mean, I've done some good things. I'm kind of an average person. Yes, I probably have something to share, but I'm not a total rock star. Is that okay?
That's absolutely okay. People want to learn from a variety of different people, and they're in different stages of their careers. You know, for some people, hearing from a Fortune 500 CEO does not apply to the startup business that they're trying to create. It's much more relevant to hear from somebody else who's maybe in the trenches themselves and shares lessons learned. We've had, our events run the gamut from people who are just recently out of school, just very dynamic people, to, you know, the Fortune 500 types.
Right.
So it's really, and it really also depends on the mix of what other activities the alumni relations team is planning. So they might have already filled the roster with the, quote, rock stars, and they need some people who are more how-to kind of in the trenches.
Right.
So the next step after you go to an event, contacting your alumni relations professional, is just lay out your idea. How can it help other alumni, or how could it be of interest to students, and see where it could fit in.
Sure. Yeah, I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson who said that everybody I meet is my superior in some way. So therefore, everybody gets to offer something. Actually, one of the best speeches that I've ever given that was the most well received is a speech about how I lost $250,000. So
well, that's putting it out there.
Yeah, it is not this big speech on success and how I'm the best and how much money. I mean, this is how I, like, all the mistakes I made, everything that made it up to that time, that event of losing $250,000, and people were pretty captivated. So I think, I mean, that is a lesson in itself, although it kind of sells my failure in that circumstance. So
right, and keeping in mind that the alumni relations staff are professionals at this, that their job is to help make you successful. So another piece of advice that I give in the article, and I'll expand on here, is to listen to them. You come in with your speaking idea and then listen to them tell you, well, here's what we've seen worked in the past. Here's the type of marketing that works. We really want you to fill the room. We want you to get your name out there or sell your book or whatever it is that your own personal motivations are. And we also want the other alumni to, you're giving back to the school, so we want them to take something away. So following their lead in terms of how you present things, how you market it, it's a really nice, if you haven't spoken before, it's kind of a nice way to get free coaching in a way from people who know what works with this audience.
Right. And you wrote something in the article about make speakers show how their topic will attract alumni and how it relates to the school's mission. So you want to not only think in terms of your interests, but of course of what the alumni wants and what the audience will actually get out of your speech. Right.
Is that, we're selling something too. So we've got to sell this event to the alumni, and it's going to take staff time or volunteer time and some resources here. So the more that it can tie into the school's overall strategy, the better. So, if your school has a great athletic program and you work in marketing, maybe you tweak it so it's about sports marketing, for example. But really think about how this might help the school as well, because you are giving back. It is a sort of a gift in kind, if you will, of your talent and your time. So it's, again, working with your alumni relations professional or the volunteer that's coordinating this, they can really help you figure that part out.
Okay. Now, maybe they're going to say, yes, we'd love to have you speak, but we don't quite have a room or we don't see a good fit for you to be a key speaker, but we would like you on a panel. What would the panel be like? And what suggestions do you have for that?
Yeah, so the panel, and I think we've all been to these kind of events where the panel, if every panel member is there in isolation and it feels like, well, they weren't quite, we didn't really have room for them to be their own speaker, so we're just going to throw them on a panel, and they don't seem to know each other and they're not coordinated, that can feel really disconnected for the audience member. In contrast, if the panel members themselves and the event coordinator work hard to create magic on the stage between and among the panel speakers, and something about your fellow panel members, and you can sort of coordinate your answers and understand what the angles are that they're coming from. That magic that you have up there on stage flows out into the audience. And so when I've put together panels, I've really tried to at least do one conference call and get the people there early so they can sort of bond and know who they're teaming up with to put on this production.
So would it be inappropriate for the person who's going to be on the panel to ask the alumni administrator or somebody for contact information of the other people on the panel?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, the better they know which angles they're coming from, the better they can also tailor their answers so that they're not all saying the same thing. And if the event coordinator has done their job, they aren't just getting 3 people or 5 people who all agree on everything. Right. You have people that have slightly different angles to the issue that you're talking about.
Right.
So, if you're asked to be on a panel, I would suggest that you push. If the person doesn't offer that, I would suggest that you push and at the very least look up their biographies and, maybe read the forwards of their books or whatever they might have published.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the benefits to the speaker. I mean, we already mentioned experience, but as they say, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want, right?
That's cute.
But what other benefits are there to the speaker?
It's a great way to, put it on your resume. That's wonderful. But it's also giving back to the school, and it's, of course, we always like financial donations at our schools. That's what pays the faculty and keeps the lights on. But it's also the alumni, when people come to school as students, they have an expectation that this engagement that they have on campus will continue throughout their lives. And part of that lifelong engagement is the network that you build. And so being part of that network and moving that network forward and helping to facilitate other people's networking among each other is a really good feeling that you made these connections among people. So, that's a huge benefit there. And the practice, of course, of speaking in front of a group.
Of course. And I would imagine in front of any group, the more people there are, especially people that are in your field or interested in your message, there's a chance that you could connect with one of them, and they may have an opportunity for you to speak, and that might even be a paid gig.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. There's that. If that's the path you want to take, or people who want to collaborate with you on whatever you're doing.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a million different ways it can go. And one of the ways that we know an event and a speaker has been really successful is how many people run up to the podium after the speaker is done and swarm them. I mean, I've sat in the Cornell Club in New York City till midnight because, the event's over at 9:00 and people swarm the speaker and just want to hear more and hear more and hear more. And finally, I have to say, okay, I got to get to sleep, guys. I got to turn out the lights. But that's one of the measurements that I would use to know whether a speaker was really successful or not.
Gotcha. And would it be okay for the speaker to sell some product in the back of the room? Is that appropriate, or does it depend on the condition, or what's your advice on that?
It really depends on the condition. I think if you are there purely to sell your books or to sell your whatever it is you're selling, the audience can smell that, and they can smell it in the marketing all the way to your speech. And so, I think if you have a book, it's great to, we in a lot of cases, we will set up a table in the back and you can do a signing or something. But the content of the speech has to be there. It has to be sort of P.S. if you want to hear more, I have a book.
Right.
Not, sometimes you see on talk shows where people are shilling their book and they tease you with just enough, and then they say, well, you'll have to hear the other 7 suggestions in my book. And you can just tell, you're here to sell your book, and it doesn't smell good.
Right.
So that should not be the primary reason you do it, but it's, certainly a doable thing. We want to help out the speakers as much as we can, and because we 99% of the time do not pay speakers. So offering to sell the books or the webcast or whatever it is they're selling is okay.
So you wouldn't be offended if a speaker asked you, hey, do you mind if I offer my book in the back of the room after the speech?
No, and in some cases we've actually on the registration form will say, the event costs $40 and then add another $25 if you want the book.
Gotcha.
And that seems to work pretty well.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to tell us? Anything that we missed here? Anything that our audience would like to hear?
I think that's about it. The other piece we didn't touch on are webinars.
The webinars,
which is a unique sort of speaking experience. And the technology is such these days that it's pretty easy to do a webinar. And so if you don't live in a region where there are events, that might be another way to go.
Right. Or if you don't even feel like leaving your house.
Right.
Right. And just for the benefit of our audience who have never heard of a webinar, basically it's just a way to communicate with a whole bunch of people in front of your computer through the technology, maybe a video or just audio only technology where you're actually speaking to the larger audience. And it is it's something that I would strongly suggest that every public speaker get good at if they're not already good at delivering a speech through that medium. All right, Jennifer, thank you so much. This is great, and I am certainly going to try this with my own college. My own college is only about an hour away, so it would be very convenient for me to do some large events. I know they have events all their time at the main college. So I'm going to give them a call. I'm going to go to the website like you suggest, and I'll see how it works.
Well, maybe we can do a reverse podcast where I interview you after your experience.
Sure. You got my number.
All right. Well, let me know how it turns out.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Isn't it about time you published that book you've been thinking about? We can help with that. At ebookit.com, we've been providing authors and small presses with ebook publishing services since 2010. Visit us today at ebookit.com and let us know how we can help you.